Welcome to Brew Day, Rowdy's house. We're doing up a Rowdy's Honey Brown, 7th February, Super Bowl Sunday, and I'm out here brewing beer. I'll take a look at halftime or something. Equipment, what do we got to make this thing happen? Well, we got to heat up some water. First off, we use our hot liquor tank, which is a 15-gallon converted keg. Drilled a cup of a spigot in there and a thermometer so I can gauge what the temperature of the water is before I put it in with my grain. And we've got 25 quarts of water heating up right now. We're looking for a temperature of 163. Once that gets up to 163, we're going to shove it down in here to our hot liquor tank. I'm sorry, our mash tun. And it is just a converted 10-gallon igloo cooler with a thermometer drilled in there and a spigot just screwed onto the top of it, and they sell converter kits for that. The 25 quarts of water is going to go into here at 163 degrees. We're going to throw our 18.5 pounds of grain into it, and that'll bring the temperature down to about 152 is what we're looking for our mash tun temperature of. And we'll get conversion of all the sugars into something that the yeast can start digesting. Once we've gone through an hour of the mashing process, we'll transfer it over to the boil kettle, which will be sitting up on top of the other boiler, and we'll use a pump to do that, and I'll go over the process shortly. But same thing here, no thermometer, just drilled a hole and put a faucet in it. No thermometer on this one because I know what temperature and I know what the wort is going to boil at. So, and to cool down the wort, we've got our heavy-duty wort chiller. Okay, step 2. I've taken my 165-degree water from the hot liquor tank, put it down into my cooler. 5.5 gallons is what the software told me to do. Now I'm going to take the grains. I got 19.5 pounds of grain plus 3 pounds of honey. I'll put it in the boil. But I'll go ahead and pour the grain and do my mash in, and I'll give you a picture of that just shortly. Pour the grains in. We're doing the mash in. You can take a look. It sort of looks like some watered down oatmeal, but the calculations worked out pretty good. I was looking for a mash temperature 152, and I'm sitting about 153. It'll come down shortly to 152, and we'll let it sit for an hour. We keep it insulated pretty well. These igloo coolers do a really nice job of keeping your mash about the same temperature for an hour to an hour and a half. The grain's been sitting or mashing for about an hour. What I'm going to start doing is recirculating using my pump. It's a Marge pump. It's made for hot liquids. So what I'll do is recirculate, actually pulling the liquid off the bottom of the grains and putting it back up at the top. And what that'll do is start clearing out the fluid, and it's using the grain as a filter. So it's going to get all the coarse fibers out and clear the fluid out a little bit. Once I can do that for about 10 minutes, I'm going to start the sparging process, which is taking hot water and running it through the grains, putting it into my boil kettle. And that should take about 45 minutes or so. And what's that doing? It's actually rinsing the grains clear of all the sugars and putting it in the boil kettle ready to go, ready to boil up and add our hops and honey. Okay, I'm recirculating right now, so I've got the pump on a pretty low outflow. So it's just bringing a little liquid through. I just got to pump it back into the top, and it's sucking through, and it's basically using the grain bed as a filter. We wouldn't have to do this if we had a 3-tier system, but I've just got a single-tier system. So we need to use the pump to recirculate and get the wort back into the boil kettle when it's ready to boil. So what I'm doing now is I'm setting up to sparge. So I've got my quick disconnects where I'm just hooking it up to the boil kettle. And I will start draining from the hot liquor tank down to my mash tun in a very sophisticated process using my handy dandy colander. And what this does is it spreads out the water, the sparge water, so we don't have any channeling. So it makes a nice even spread of the water out through. As the water drips down into the grain bed. We'll start the 168 degree water slowly dripping into the mash tun. This will start my sparge process. We're rinsing the grains of the sugars. And the goal is never to have the grains go uncovered from water. And the whole process for a 10-gallon batch would take at least 45 minutes or so. So I just got it coming out of there, 168 degree water. And now I'm going to start pumping into my boil kettle, trying to get the right amount of flow going. And it's starting to pump in. A little too fast. I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. And this process should take about 45 minutes, and what we're doing is making sure we're getting all the sugars out of the grain into the boil kettle. Once I get about a gallon or 2 gallons in here, I'm going to spark up the flames, started heating and going through the boil process. Okay, about halfway through the boil. Start out with about 12 gallons. Got a nice rolling boil going on here. I don't know if you can see it too well. But got the hops in. It's just a 60-minute boil for the hops, so I threw those all in. I usually use a straining bag just to separate the hops out, so there's not so much sediment going into the fermenters, but I couldn't find it this time, so I just threw everything in there. So, well, the boil's done, so I've hooked up the wort chiller. Just the hose inlet and then the hose outlet. Just got it draining out to the driveway. We'll see how long it takes. Normally about 20 minutes or so to get it down to about 80 degrees. So next shot will be actually putting the wort into the fermenters and then pitching the yeast in there and aerating them. About 80 degrees or less. And then normally I would just open up the valve and let it flow in from the bottom, but I didn't use a straining bag to keep the hops together, so they're all on the bottom and they clog the valve. That's one of the drawbacks to using that brand of valves. So I just went back to the old traditional way of siphoning it out, and I'll siphon it out here to about the 5.5, 6 gallon mark in that one, and fill the 5-gallon carboy up. And I'm going to use different yeast in either one of them. One I'm going to use a London ale yeast, and the other I'm using California ale. So I'll get a little different flavors out of them and see which one turns out best. So that's basically the brew process. We started at about 11 o'clock today. It's now 4:20. I got about 15 more minutes of doing this and then clean up, so 6 hours worth.